Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another incredible episode of The Gathering Movement. I'm here today with Bryan, and I could not be more excited to be talking all about how all success really comes from personal growth. So thank you, Bryan, for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Bridget.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We're having a nice conversation before we even started. So it's just exciting to connect with people like you, same wavelength.
Yeah, ditto.
Yep.
We should always be, I feel like we should be recording the pre-conversation. That's like a whole other show, but they're really good.
I think that's what all podcasts always says. It's like, oh, damn, I wish we had the record button on. So I'm excited to talk to you today. I personally love the topic of success beyond just monetary success.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about your kind of origin story, how you even got into this work in the first place.
So I don't want to say I got into it by accident, because that really underplays the situation that was going on. But like my backstory, like a lot of people's, is one of some form of struggle. And I do get into with people like, well, I didn't go through that much, or their story's worse, or there's no comparison here. Like, we all live our life and we all have the struggles that we face. So like, set aside whether this is better or worse or whatever, but I grew up in a family that was getting divorced. Like, my parents, not my family, but when I was a little kid, and like half the country or whatever. And it affected me, right? I was like 4 or 5 years old when it was going on. I totally didn't understand it. I was the youngest of 4 kids. And so my parents had the divorce plus 4 kids to figure out, like, what are they thinking and feeling. And it's not like I could be like, Mom, I'm actually really troubled by this current situation. And I'm not like, so what I turned to food. And so, like, I was trying to soothe and not understanding what was going on in me. And so that, developed a really unhealthy relationship between this building anxiety that things were falling apart and some momentary hit to try to help me with that in the food. And, I did a lot of field research on this. Food does not solve anxiety problems at all. Does not help kids develop into better people, because they just go for Oreos when they don't feel right. And that was kind of my drug of choice, was Oreos. But I spent like my whole childhood obese and getting more and more so, and also really overcome by this anxiety that everything is about to go wrong or is going wrong. And as a kid, you can't do anything about that. And so as I got older and was more and more capable, I was super independent and very much able to, like, hold the sky up that was falling in my vicinity, which is valuable and necessary and has served me really well in life, and is it's crushing and it's exhausting and has served me very poorly in life and how I relate to others and how I think about like, I got kind of a stressed message from someone right before we went on, and it was a little bit attacking, and like, the old me would have like just jumped on it and like, how do I push back? And I was just like, I'm not going to respond to him. Like, this is not a sky falling that needs anyone to hold it up. That person's going through something. They want to sound off. I'm in their way when they're doing it. That's okay. But that doesn't need to take my life down. That doesn't mean I need to start worrying and freaking out. And I'm probably going to do the wrong thing if I do that anyway. But that's not how I was at all. I was the reaction. And funny enough, like, as I got into my adulthood, I lost a bunch of weight, but I didn't solve the reasons why I was obese. So I was always in this, like, I used to joke that I was obese and now I'm trying not to be, which is like a pretty lame way to describe your life. But I became a management consultant, which is all about, like, you're solving problems. So my job ended up reinforcing all of those anxiety tendencies, because I was going around looking for what was about to explode and try to defuse the bomb before it did, or pick up the pieces after it did and get things back together. So, like, very much a mindset of everything's constantly going wrong and it's on you to fix it, which is totally a vicious cycle. Fast forward to my early 30s, I was married. I had a 2-year-old, and my wife got really sick. And I was 32, it was 2011, and she's wasting away. No one can figure out what's wrong with her. She's in intense pain. She becomes bedridden. We're like starting our family together. And now I'm looking at, is there going to be, is it just going to be me and my son? Like, is she going to make it? And as I'm thinking that, I get a call from her doctor who's basically saying there's nothing else to do. And then he goes, I'm going on vacation. I'll be back in 6 weeks and I'll check in with you then. So he's like, your wife's going to die. I'm going to go. Bye. And he hung up. So that's where like all of those fears became real. And if I always thought the sky was falling, whether I was right or I was wrong before, like clearly that's what's going on here. And so instead of starting my life with this woman, it's ending. And I'm about to be a widower and a single dad. And how do I navigate that? So I walked back into our bedroom after getting off the phone, and my wife's in bed, and our son is at the foot of the bed, like playing with something, but just like looking at his mother, and it hit me. I'm like, he's watching his mother die. And I am just a complete stressful like basket case because I'm constantly scrambling about all the things I have to do, all the pressure, all the fear, everything is going wrong. And no matter how hard I scramble, I can't seem to fix this. And I will say she's still alive because of her journey. And that's a whole other story. But I certainly was not contributing to that at the time because of this like unhelpful stress monger that I was. I thought I was helping, but that's not helpful. You know, when someone's really facing the toughest thing they ever face, smacking them in the face, not that I've smacked her, but like, you know, like, you just have to do this, you have to do that. And why aren't you listening to this doctor? That is not helpful. You know, she needed someone to stand with her and just hear her and validate her concerns and her pain. And to me, that meant I was agreeing with all of her worries and feeling helpless. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to say there was no hope. So I was fighting her on it instead of just like letting her understand, no, I hear you. I'm with you. You're not alone, which is what she needed. And my son needed someone to give him that message. Like, you think about what I turned into because my parents divorced. He's now watching his mother die.
Mm.
And what does that mean for the rest of his life? And so for me, like, I need to be there for him and securing for him so he has a shot at not what I became. And I was failing him because it's like, Daddy, will you play with me? No, I can't. I have to go do this and I have to do that. And I need to make this for your mom. And I need to do the laundry. And like, he's 2. He just wants you to like sit and read him a book or just show him that things are okay, even though something very serious is not okay. And I was failing him. And in that moment, those 2 purposes, being there for her and for him, were enough to snap me out of this pattern I was in and this series of excuses of constantly like, you know, like my wife had talked to me about my anxiety and like, you should go talk to someone. It's like, I can't do that. I don't have any time and the cost of it. And, you know, when am I I can't just leave work during the day and I get home and you need me. And like, I always had every excuse in the world. Something was very different in this moment. There was a profound sense of purpose to it and a sense of direction that I had not felt before. And I went to sleep and kind of reflected on that. Woke up in the morning and I still felt it. And, you know, we all have like a momentary inspiration. We're like, oh yeah, I was like, I felt great from this. Or I had this conversation with someone and I came away so jazzed from it. And then the next day it's like, and then life happens again and you let it go. This was really different. And what I recognized was this is that lifeline that I've kind of always known I needed, but just never felt before. And if I don't grab hold of that like life preserver someone just threw me off the side of the boat that I fell off of, I was done. If I let this slip away, like not just me now, my wife is done, my son is done, like, and that's not okay. That was the birth of a shift in my life. That was July 1st, 2011. Like, I'll never forget the phone call. I'll never forget the feeling that morning. And it led me to like literally that same morning to look at like, where is my life going and how am I acting in it? And what can I change? I can't save my wife's life. I can be better for her as she's trying to, but I can't make her better. I can't make my son happy for the rest of his life, but I can support him differently by being a different person for him so he has a shot at that. And that all of that means I need to change. So there were 3 specific things that I'm like, I need to address these things. And I was much clearer about how and why and when and by when. And literally, I have never been the same from like June 30th to who I became on July 1st. And it's going to be 10 years this summer. I've never been the same person. And that's where I got into the work that I do and the coaching and like the banners behind me, the book that I wrote. It's just a totally different way to look at life. And it doesn't mean I don't struggle. Doesn't mean I don't have all, I'm still the person I am. I still had the experiences that I had that shaped me, but I know how to navigate them now. And that's what's markedly different.
What a beautiful story. And I always think about, we were never really given a manual for life. We were never really taught how to navigate our emotions, how to navigate challenging events, how to navigate beautiful events.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and for many of us, it is this moment of, oh shit, I have to look at my life. I have to reevaluate where I'm going, who I am. And it really sounds like you had that moment.
Yeah. It's as you say, like about the manual, the funny thing is like we are in a sense given one subconsciously in how we're raised, what we're exposed to, all of that. And that manual becomes a mindless manual because there's nothing conscious going on in how we're making those decisions. And so we end up going down paths that, in hindsight, was that the best thing for us or those we care about? We end up making decisions in these places of insecurity and anxiety, which like we will never make the right decisions in those cases except by accident or coincidence. So what if you have this like mindful, roadmap or decision manual to try to navigate these things? And that's really what the shift was for me. Is like, I don't just want to go with the wiring that I've had. I don't want to say I've been given because, that places blame elsewhere. Like ultimately it's my wiring. I made this one way or the other. So that also means I can change it. But that is a conscious effort and it's a constant effort. And for some people that scares them away. For me, that's exciting because it's like I get to participate in who I am for the rest of my life, which is a really nice idea. And I think what a lot of us end up losing is like life happens to us. That doesn't sound great.
Yeah, it brings us back into the driver's seat of our lives is what I like to say. And challenging that we have to go through challenges, but also for me personally, it's always been that's the catalyst. And it sounds like the same for you. It's like I had this aha, I took a look at my life, I was ready to sit in the driver's seat and take personal responsibility.
Yeah.
So for you, after that moment, after July 1st, were you finding a coach? Were you going to a therapist? Were you changing your diet? Like where was the actual actionable change?
For sure. So the therapist was one of those three things. Was like, I'm going to deal with this. And this was kind of the beginning of this notion that like the way I live my life, I call it do a day. And this is where it's one of the ways it started was I had always been looking at, my wife's like, you need to talk to someone. Immediately I go to like 80 appointments and I have to go through my whole story and it's all too much. Now remember, I was obese and I had lost a bunch of weight. I lost 100 pounds when I was 18. And every single day that I woke up having 100 pounds to lose, it was like that mountain was insurmountable because it always felt like you have 100 pounds to lose. And the reality is like, you're not losing 100 pounds today.
Right.
You're not making 80 appointments or 20 or 120 or whatever the number is. You're not making anything work beyond what you are doing in this very moment. That was the big shift for me, is a very mindful and purposeful focus on the immediate thing I can do to win, to move that moment forward. And the next step towards the summit of that mountain is what you will face in that next moment, but you're not there today. And it was, for me, it was always this focus on like, but what about all these other things? And this is going to, like, I always say the sky is falling, like it's a crumbling that will happen. I don't know that. And the fact that I'm still standing means I've never been right. And I've faced some pretty big crumbling moments, but I've never been right about it or I wouldn't be here. So recognizing that allowed me to like, okay, I'm going to reach out to someone. So I found a therapist, I reached out to her, made the first appointment, and I made the first appointment work. And when that was done, I made a decision about the next appointment, which was still just one appointment. And I made that work. And same thing with my weight is like, okay, I had gotten down to like 180. And now I'm 222. Like I'll, never forget these numbers, right? So I'm 222, I'm 32 years old. It's the summer. My 33rd birthday is coming up. I'm going to get myself to 185 by my 33rd birthday. And I plotted it out. And like, because I had lost 100 pounds before, I had the tools to do it, but I didn't have the mindset. Now I had the mindset. So what if I put that to it? And I thought about what I ate consciously. And I thought about my exercise. Like I would get on the elliptical, open a magazine because like iPads hadn't been invented yet, literally. and just kind of zone out. And then all of a sudden the thing's beeping because 30 minutes had passed. Maybe I was sweating. Now I'm like, no, I'm going to do intervals and I'm going to watch the timer on it and I'm going to push myself. And so what I found is by my 33rd birthday in October, I didn't get down to 185. I got to 180. And so for me, that was like, okay, I proved that I can do better than I even thought I can when I'm consciously, mindfully going through that roadmap and living it and watching, like, did I do well today? Did I not do well today? And if I did well today, that doesn't mean tomorrow I get to slack off.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did poorly today, that doesn't mean, and a lot of us who have dieted, it's like, you go to the bar and pre-COVID at least, and it's like, it's Jill from accounting's birthday and you have too many beers and nachos and you're like, oh my God, my diet's ruined. You go home and eat like 3 pizzas and a cheesecake because you ruined it, right? No, like in every moment, whether you make a right or a wrong decision, that doesn't mean the next moment is tainted or that the next moment you get a pass. So you see people who like reward themselves for losing 5 pounds by going out and having a big meal. It's like, why are you tying that with your success there? They're not intertwined unless you make them. So it was a very conscious in each moment decision towards the things I was trying to change. And I found myself making progress much faster than I expected to. And I had mentors and people who had been there for me in my life that I, kind of lost touch with. I reached out. And, there's one guy I talk about in the book from the first time I lost weight, who's just one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever known. And I reached out to him and he was incredible as I knew he would be. And, thankfully I'm still very much connected to him today. I give him a lot of credit and he refuses to take any of it. But, yeah, like you build a network around you, and I was really public about it. So I was posting my weight on Facebook and I wasn't a social media person at all, to build a bit of support because I ended up with cheerleaders and to build a bit of social pressure. Like I wanted to be accountable. And what I found is, and this is how I got into coaching, people start to come out of the woodwork and they're like, I'm seeing what you're doing. I'm struggling too. Can you help me? Yep. And so that's how I also started to kind of spread the love and pay it back to the community around me that had been there for me.
I mean, this is the power of sharing our stories. This is the power of our vulnerability, of sharing that we all have challenges. And when we share our challenges, we remind everyone who's in the corners that they are not alone and we are not alone.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. And I have a question for you, which is, what would the world look like if more people could be present in their day-to-day and know that they didn't have to think about figuring it all out? They just had to be present in their one day. What would the world look like?
I think there'd be a lot less hatred and misunderstanding, because if we were present in that day, that means when you and I are having a conversation, I'm not also thinking of and doing other things, which, like, how many meetings have you been in or talking to people where like this is the version of them that you get, right? And it's so rude. And it's so disassociating between human beings. And I think we've all learned in the past year how much like social beings we are, even those of us who are introverted or hermits or whatever. Like there is a cost from not connecting with people. And when you bring that connection mindfully and presently and you set the other stuff aside, you build something much bigger. So I think we would be a better society, more understanding. The discourse that's going on these days, like American versus American, or take your pick of country, one citizen against another, and then internationally, like, would we still have that? Yeah, but not like we do right now. And I think that is such a waste and such a shame. And I think we'd have less of the anxiety that honestly consumes a lot of people's lives. And I think that cost from that anxiety is one of these mindless things that you don't even realize till you're free of it. I think we spend so much on the exhaustion and the pain and the fear and the decisions we make because of those things and the downfall from those decisions. So what if we could break that cycle?
What if we could break that cycle?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can.
It doesn't have to be a what if, it's whether we will.
Yep.
But it's a movement, right? Like, to the point of the name of this, like, we can choose to come together and do that, even if it's just you. That word just is totally a 4-letter word. Like, just you is a big deal. You're a life, and there's lives that you impact, and the way that we act and behave and feel is totally contagious. Like, it spreads. You're kind to someone, even if they're still angry, they're probably gonna be a little less angry or a little less agitated. And when they're agitated, the people they're interacting with come away agitated. Like that guy who was yelling at me before. Like, it spreads. And so if we start to move even just ourselves, we start to move a community.
I couldn't agree more. And that is why we're here. That is why we are sharing these messages, sharing our stories, being honest, being open, and reminding people that the power is within them.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. It's a choice.
For you, who has been the greatest teacher or teaching or book that you have read that's inspired you?
So that guy that I mentioned, he's one of them. His name is Henri. Yeah, he wouldn't want me saying anything more, but he knows well who he is. He's an incredible person. I do mention him in the book. So that's one. I'm looking up at the book that I think is by far the greatest thing I've ever read. People are like, oh, here he goes. He's going to talk about his book. No, it's not mine. It's called Open Heart, Clear Mind, and it's by a Buddhist monk named Thubten Chodron. It's incredible, like, absolutely incredible. And it was a therapist that I was seeing, not the original one, a different one, who recommended it to me. And there's no doubt, like, that book was life-changing. I wish I found it sooner, but I'm thankful for finding it when I found it. And then the other person, we were talking about this, is Rich Roll. So a little bit of a fanboy in there, but I've appreciated, I loved his book. His book is why I'm vegan, Finding Ultra. It just challenged, and it's actually why my book's name is Do a Day, is like, it challenged me to think differently about things I kept looking at. And I'm like, I had thought about going vegan before trying it. And I always had well, what about a work trip or a business dinner or my son's birthday party? Or what, like, what if he wants me to have cake with him and the cake's not vegan? What am I going to do? And I just was like, just like all those doctor's appointments or all the weight, none of those things is happening. So why would I make a decision today about things that may or may not happen 10 years from now or tomorrow? I have no clue. So it allowed me to look a little bit differently at the moment, the in the moment decision. And that was January of 2015. And I'm still vegan today. And yeah, there have been times when I haven't eaten fully vegan, but I'd say like 100% of the time, no, but 95, 98 something percent of the time, I'm 100% vegan, and I'm good with that. And I'm much healthier, and my weight's not an issue and all that. So Rich is a big inspiration there.
Awesome. It's reminding me of this Mark Twain quote, which I'm probably going to butcher in this present moment, but it's something along the lines of, I've had 1,000 fears and most of them have never happened.
Yeah. It's completely true. And yet we still think when the next one comes up, like, no, but this time
it's real.
I just tell people, like, the fact that you're alive, that you're standing, means either you were totally wrong or you underestimated your ability to get through it. Because if not, you would not be here today. It's really, and we just don't seem to give ourselves credit for that. We're super resilient. Even those of us who say we aren't, you wouldn't be alive if you weren't. It's just that simple.
I love that. How can people contact you? What's next? All those things.
Yeah. So easiest place to find me and all the stuff that I'm always putting out is bryanfalchuk.com, and it's Bryan with a Y, and you get it in the title there. But that's the hardest part of the whole journey, is just spelling my name. If you can get through that, there's nothing else to fear. I try to put out a lot, and I try not to charge for it. So like each of my books, there's a TEDx you can watch for the 15-minute like Reader's Digest version for free. So you can take the stuff in.
Awesome. Well, Bryan with a Y,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for supporting this show and this series. I really believe that we can change the world one voice at a time. So thank you, Bryan.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thanks.